Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon on Living the Eucharist. I'm just delighted that you can be here with us today. It's a lovely day in our nation's capital. So as we gather, I want to share my screen with you and pull up our presentation for this afternoon. So today, as we gather, we'll be focusing on how living the Eucharist can transform your parish during Lent 2020. This concept, I think, is really exciting because Lent is such a special time in our parishes. And if we can help anyone to come to know Christ more closely, even better, that's really our role as ministers within our Catholic faith. As we begin this webinar this afternoon, I'd like to pray with you this prayer for living the Eucharist, which parishes will be praying in Lent of 2020, year A. So please join me as we say together, loving God, you called us each by name and gave your only Son to redeem us. In your faithfulness, you sent the Holy Spirit to complete the mission of Jesus among us. Open our hearts to Jesus. Give us the courage to speak his name to those who are close to us and the generosity to share his love with those who are far away. We pray that every person throughout the world be invited to know and love Jesus as Savior and Redeemer. May they come to know his all-surpassing love. May that love transform every element of our society. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So a question for us as we begin this afternoon. When you think of Lent, say of 2019, this past year, or even previous times of Lent for you, what do you recall in your own experiences that were really transformational, where you could look back and say, that time of Lent for me really made a difference? It could be that perhaps you joined a small group for the first time. It could be that you started reading the Sunday Mass readings before you came to Mass. It could be you did sort of works of charity that perhaps you really hadn't done before. And all of these are transformative for you, as you recall. Well, you could just sort of imagine your parish in Lent 2020 and imagine it with living the Eucharist. So that's what we're focusing on this afternoon. Now, Lent is such a significant time in our Catholic liturgical cycle that it's important to look at a little of the background and why we have this 6-week period each year. So as we know, it's really a time of conversion for us, a time of repentance, where we focus much more on Christ and we look at ways in which we might be veering from that pathway that Christ has set on us. And because of that, we can have conversion experiences and know that the Holy Spirit is working very powerfully within our lives. And this time from Ash Wednesday, which begins on February 26th this year, and then we move to the Easter Vigil or Easter Sunday, is a time of purification, enlightenment, illumination, because of these Lenten disciplines, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, other things that we might be involved in a special way during Lent. And what we're looking for is that the Spirit works within us and among us, with other people in our parish. We'll have hopefully a number of experiences where we say, aha, yes, I really got an insight from that, or I feel convicted or converted because of this experience. All of this leads to our renewing our baptismal promises at the Easter Vigil or Easter Sunday with minds and hearts renewed. So this is the beauty of Lent. It's the only time during the year where we have 6 weeks focusing specifically on renewing our relationship with Jesus Christ. One way of looking at the importance of Lent is to get some insight from Pope Francis, from his apostolic exhortation, The Joy of the Gospel. He writes in number 1 of this apostolic exhortation, "The joy of the gospel fills the hearts and minds of all who encounter Jesus. Those who accept his offer of salvation are set free from sin, sorrow, inner emptiness, and loneliness. With Christ, joy is constantly born anew." This is sort of another way of looking at the potential power of Lent in our own lives, but also in the lives of people who are in our parishes. If we can help people to become set free from sin, sorrow, inner emptiness, and loneliness, and replace that really with experiences of the light of Christ, we will really help people in their own transformative experience. So this is where, in our focus today, Living the Eucharist comes in, because it's a pathway through which the Holy Spirit works in our parishes during the 6 weeks of Lent and also during the Easter season. So Living the Eucharist is a proven Lenten renewal ministry. It's been in operation in parishes since 2012, and there's been over 1,250 parishes that have participated in Living the Eucharist. So this really works well for parishes because it ignites faith for people who are coming perhaps every Sunday or a couple times a month, but it also reignites the faith of those individuals who say, I want to do something for Lent, I haven't been really active in my Catholic faith, and I want to get more involved. We know that Living the Eucharist builds community, which is so essential to keeping people coming back, hopefully Sunday Mass after Sunday Mass, and it really empowers Catholics to grow as missionary disciples. We know that Pope Francis invites each Catholic to understand him or herself as a missionary disciple of Jesus, and we enhance the sense of this missionary understanding through these life-giving encounters with Jesus Christ, but centered around the Eucharist. So there are 3 goals to Living the Eucharist, which I think will make a lot of sense as we explain them. So we want people to better understand the Eucharist as they participate. And here we're not just talking about like a cognitive understanding. Rather, we're talking about a holistic understanding that if I'm invited to love God with my whole heart, mind, soul, spirit, my whole self, that's what we're looking at in terms of an understanding of the Eucharist. I'm involved emotionally. I'm involved after the rite of dismissal as an ongoing person who becomes then a more intentional missionary disciple as I leave. Because people better understand the Eucharist and their relationship to it, they're able to participate more fully in the Sunday Mass, then also to live more completely and again intentionally as a missionary disciple of Jesus. So Living the Eucharist has a lot of big claims to it, but it's really true when we look at the experience of people who participated. So when we imagine our parish as this wonderful life-giving community of disciples of Jesus, we notice that we have all sorts of people coming to Mass on Sunday, people who are a little bit older, younger, middle-aged. We have people coming from the suburbs, perhaps, whatever our experience is, rural, city. But we want something for every group that comes. So in Living the Eucharist, there are small groups for adults, small groups for teens, activities for the family in the home, a daily Lenten devotional could be done at work, at home, wherever it would be convenient for people, catechetical bulletin inserts for the whole parish, prayer cards for the whole parish, and a parish retreat during the Easter season. So everyone has an opportunity, which is so important when we're inviting people to participate. So I'd like to share a couple of these Living the Eucharist materials. I just assume that some of you probably are not familiar with Living the Eucharist. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to go to the Living the Eucharist website, and I'm just pulling it up for us here. And you can see that there are really 3 units to this website, which we found very helpful to people. So people who want to learn about living the Eucharist can go to, obviously, I want to learn about living the Eucharist, get information, get more information, preview the materials, understand what people are saying about living the Eucharist. Then those who are thinking about participating can look at sort of basically advertisements, if you will, about what adults will gain, what teens will gain, what families will gain from this type of participation. And then once the parish commits, we sort of focus on this column, but there's support for parish leadership teams, adults, teens, families, for liturgical ministers, and also helping us get a mentality of inviting people who do not have any church family and in active Catholics. So let's look at preview materials. I want to share a couple of items with you now. On this screen you're looking at, you can see that these are the various materials for Living the Eucharist. And all you have to do is sort of click on the particular resource that you're looking for. So this is a small group participant booklet. These small groups are a very important part of Living the Eucharist during the Lenten season. So to preview this for you, when an individual looks at that, they can see, well, there's 6 meetings that I would be participating during Lent. For example, this 3rd meeting, we're talking about the witness of life. The 4th meeting really talks about the good news of the gospel. Then there's a welcome to the participant, shows the 90-minute schedule, also repeats the meetings and their topics, and then introduces the person, hopefully raising expectations when you read, how should I prepare before I come to my small group meeting? How about my participation during the small group meeting? What happens after the small group meeting? All of this is designed to get the person really excited about the possibility of participating in a small group. To give you an idea of what each of these small group meetings is about, we'll go through one of these. You can see this is for the 2nd Sunday of Lent. So what we're looking at here is the topic, and then sort of a thematic presentation, summary of what that would be. Then to begin the meeting, the small group prepares for the upcoming Sunday by reading the collect, which we know as the opening prayer for the upcoming Sunday. Then we get into the discussion, faith-based, but looking at people's experiences related to the topic. Then there's a presentation, which hopefully participants would read beforehand. If not, it's also read during the meeting, so everyone is on a level playing field when it comes to the discussion. There's discussion questions related to this catechetical presentation. That's for about the first 55 minutes of the meeting. Then the second part, in order to help prepare individuals for the upcoming Sunday Mass, is an invitation for them to read these Sunday Mass readings, and then spending about 25 minutes in our small group doing Lectio Divina on a segment of one of the upcoming Sunday Mass readings. This Sunday, it's from the Gospel of Matthew. After that's completed, the whole group prays the prayer after communion, which we would call the closing prayer of the Mass, and that concludes the preview of what the small group would be involved with. Another resource that many parishes use is from Exodus to Easter. This is the daily devotional. It involves people from the Monday before Ash Wednesday through Holy Saturday. Give you a little idea of what individuals can experience as they're using this daily devotional. There's an introduction, which basically explains to people, we want you to get a lot out of this Lenten season, and we're going to help you do that by especially focusing on the upcoming Sunday Mass. And so here's how one of these days would go for a person who has from Exodus to Easter. Again, there's a theme for that particular day, a reflection on that topic, question related to the topic, an invitation to act upon it, and to pray about it. Each one of these days is the same in terms of the structure, but the content is different. So this gives you an idea of really how simple this is, but also, as we have heard from people who have used this, it's very profound in terms of their own spiritual growth. Let's go back to our main presentation now and focus a little bit on really the value of small groups. So we know from feedback that we've gotten from individuals, there's a lot of power in these small groups meeting. It could be like from 8 to 12 people. That's sort of the ideal group number. They learn Lectio Divina. Many Catholics unfortunately are not really familiar with this, but they learn it. They develop skills and habits about preparing for the upcoming Sunday Mass. They experience trust and belonging because of their faith sharing in the small group experience. And many of them learn to share their faith because each person has a story of faith, but they really haven't been in a setting that has invited them or that they would feel comfortable in sharing their own faith. And part of this also, which we're really delighted with, we've heard from people who have been sort of on the peripheries of their own practicing of their Catholic faith. And through participating in the small group for the 6-week experience, they really find their way back. This is very heartening, I think, for all of us. Another thing that we found that is very helpful to people in their experience of growing in their faith during Lent is the learning about Lectio Divina. So we have 2 videos on the website that helps Catholics learn this. I'll show you where this is on our website itself. So we look at different support for adults, teens, families, and each one of these, I'll just click on support for adults, is going to have video, learn about Lectio Divina. So I just clicked on this. You can see there are 2 videos that a person can click on. One is to learn about Lectio Divina for the Living the Eucharist small groups. Another, they would click here to learn about Lectio Divina for personal use. So it's very simple. People simply click on that. I won't play that for you here, but you can see that this is very accessible to anyone who would be in a small group, and they simply need to know about this, and then they can hopefully grow in their understanding by viewing these 2 videos. What I'd like to do now is play a little video for you. It's short, it's about 3 minutes. And this is the testimony of Michael Curran. He's a small group participant. It's a parish in Hydes, Maryland, which is just a little bit north of Baltimore. So let me pull this up for us here, and we'll watch this video.
My name is Michael Curran. I'm a parishioner at St. John the Evangelist, Long Green Valley, and I'm a small group participant in Living the Eucharist. I chose to participate in Living the Eucharist small group so that I could gain a better understanding of who Jesus is in the Eucharist, and just through that understanding, just grow to love him more and just understand him better. Other people sharing their faith experiences was definitely a highlight being part of the small group. I think that hearing the other people sharing what they had to say, I was the youngest person in the group. There were some older people, and they all had experiences that I'm going through right now in my family. I have a 3-year-old at home. Most of them, they had, grown children by this point, and just listening to what they were talking about, values that they talked about instilling in their children. I want to share that with my son. So it was great to share my own faith experiences, because I think a lot of the other people in the group, they were, cradle Catholics. I'm a cradle Catholic too, but I kind of fell away from it. And came back years later in my 20s, and sharing that, and I was coming to grips with what the Eucharist is and all of that, and that sparked some conversation too. And generally it pointed towards what we were discussing that week, and so it was nice to do that. I feel like, in addition to sharing it, they got something out of it too. Another part that helped me to learn more about the Eucharist was when the book talked about how it's like a meal, and how we all got to share experiences, what it's like for mealtime in our own families, and how when we all gather at the Mass, we're sharing a meal together, and how Jesus, when he's talking with the tax collectors, and look at who he shared his meal with, is with everybody, and how he wants everybody to come to that. Going through this has helped me to focus more on my participation in Mass. And I recall going through that section, bringing up instances when we maybe didn't think, like how often, when was the last time you really felt you participated? And thinking of a Mass when I felt like I completely participated, where everything was going, my thought was entirely dedicated to what was happening. That has made me, ever since then, every time I go to Mass, that's on my mind. If I feel my mind drifting, oh wait, no, we learned about that. So definitely that was another thing that most certainly has stuck with me. So my message for the person who was maybe even on the fence, or whether they want to participate in this, is if you want to know more about Jesus and the Eucharist and what a gift we have in that, absolutely take the dive, take the chance and experience this, because it definitely has helped me to come to a better understanding, as well as the other people in my group, what the Eucharist is and how Jesus is active in it, through it.
Well, that's our friend Michael Curran. I had the opportunity of interviewing him for this video. And a couple of things I remember especially, and he mentions it in the video itself, the fact that he came back to the church, said I was inactive for a while. This is simply one example of what could happen really to any person in your parish who is sort of coming back to the church, and how he or she can grow in his or her own faith through a Living the Eucharist small group. I'm also aware that Michael learned a number of things. He talked about his own participation, how that has really heightened for him because of his awareness of the beauty of the Eucharist and coming to know Christ more deeply in that experience. We found from feedback from over 5,000 people who have participated in a small group that some really wonderful things happen because of their participation. So 90% of the small group members rate their experiences very good or excellent, and there's a higher percentage in the excellent experience. 92% have a better understanding of the Eucharist. 88% participate more fully in Sunday Mass, and 95% are more committed to live each day as intentional disciples of Jesus. Again, everyone is going to have a different experience, but you can see generally the overall evaluative material that we've received indicates that you're going to have a very high level of experiences of people who say, I'm really glad that I was part of this group. We talked a little bit about this from Exodus to Easter, my daily journey through Lent, as a method for helping individuals to develop a mindset of the importance of preparing for the upcoming Sunday Mass and hopefully developing habits around that to make that happen, which occurs through people actually using this daily devotional during the Easter season. So I'd like to play another video. This is short, again, about a little over 3 minutes. This is from Patrick Donahue, also from St. John the Evangelist in Hydes, Maryland. And we're going to discover Patrick's story, and we'll just pull his video up for us here.
My name is Pat Donahue, and my parish is St. John the Evangelist in Hydes, Maryland. And we're going to be discussing from Exodus to Easter. For me, it was first of all, a personal experience. This part of the program, and I would try to do it around the same time every morning. So I got into a routine during Lent and try to keep on schedule. Now, I'm not here to say that I was perfect at it, but I missed a few days and had to do two readings in one day and things of that nature. But for the most part, I was on schedule, and I enjoyed that sense of discipline that instilled during the Lenten season. I got a lot out of the reflections in the actual book itself, but it also kind of forced me, if you will, to do the readings for this, for the oncoming Sunday, the scripture readings, and reflect on that. So when it came time for church on Sunday, I felt like I was kind of well versed for what was to come, and just got more out of it in that way. I like the fact that it was short. I mean, there's only about 8 paragraphs in the daily reading, so you can do it very quickly, within 15 minutes to a half hour, depending on how long you wanted to dwell on some of on the topics. But so you could read it at your own pace. You could take your time if you wanted to, or take more time if you needed to. And I enjoyed the introduction and reflection, because there was a lot of depth in there. And then I went on to the shorter parts, like the questions and answers, for that particular day. I wish I could say that I had the discipline now that I had during Lent, because it really was fulfilling to be able to go through the program every day, do the readings, and really kind of be prepared, if you will, on Sundays. I'm trying to carry that on. Sometimes it doesn't always work as it did during Lent. But if I can do that, I think it just helps so much to as a Catholic, and to get the most out of the Sunday Mass. I would say that it's a very worthwhile endeavor, and even if I wasn't part of a small group, I would definitely do from Exodus to Easter on my own, because it just, again, it sets up the discipline and prepares you for Mass every Sunday, and just puts you in the spirit of the Lenten season. I think this was the best part of my Lenten season, having this little booklet, being able to go through it every day, and probably in my 68 years of celebrating Lent, as well, less than that as an adult, I think I reflected and enjoyed the season, and was in the spirit of Lent more than I ever have.
Well, this is our friend Patrick Donahue. Really a wonderful person to talk with. Again, as we sort of reflect on his video, a couple of things come to mind. When he said, I'm 68, and at least as an adult, this was his best Lent ever. And he also realized, as he was sharing with us, that his experience during the Lenten period, using from Exodus to Easter, he mentioned was quote unquote fulfilling. And it sort of set a new bar for him, sort of a new benchmark about what it could be like to sort of be in a new way and sort of communing with God in this type of individual preparation for the upcoming Sunday Mass. So one of the visions, hopes that we would have, especially for parishes using Living the Eucharist, is that more and more people would have an experience like Patrick Donahue and begin preparing for the upcoming Sunday Mass by doing at least some sort of reflection on the upcoming Sunday Mass readings before they come. We now have some other materials from Living the Eucharist that I simply want to share with you. And what we're going to do now is go back to our Living the Eucharist website, and we're going to click on Preview Materials. And I want to show you a couple of different resources that we haven't looked at before. So one is, there's a teen component to Living the Eucharist, but This is video-based and is really designed to focus, to engage teens in Lent in a very meaningful way for them. I invite you to look at this at your own leisure. Another resource that we found to be very helpful, especially to younger families, is this family activity booklet. Let me share a couple of parts of this with you. But we know today that there are a number of, especially younger parents, who perhaps feel a little insecure about their own, perhaps Catholic understanding. And so, therefore, they're a little bit reticent, reserved, maybe, what do I share with my children? So this family activity booklet really can be something can be very, very helpful to them. So there are 6 meetings in the home during Lent. They last about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the age of the children. The focus here is based on the catechesis of the Good Shepherd to get the children involved, especially in understanding the signs and symbols of the Eucharist. So they learn about the book that they see carried in, the book of the Gospels, each Sunday. They learn about the symbols that they see on the altar each Sunday, a wonderful way to prepare the children. So when parents pick this booklet up, family activity booklet, they see that it's just for them in the sense that they are given this overview at the beginning, telling them what this can do for them and for their children during the Lenten period. You can see this is only a few pages, then an invitation to write some notes. This gives the parents a sense of competence and confidence that indeed I can lead these 20 to 30-minute sessions with my children. This can be for all members of the family, even if there's, say, a grandmother or grandfather participating. This works very well. There's simply one chapter that would present information on what the family would do for the first Sunday of Lent. The focus is on the altar table. You can see there's preparation here that the parents would involve their children in, especially looking at things that they see on the altar. Then an introduction that one of the parents leads, and then looking at these different elements. This is a chalice. This is a crucifix. And this is a way that the children really learn about the significance of everything that we see during the Mass time. Some reflection on this. This is our age-appropriate questions. Then there's another part which follows this understanding of these signs and symbols. In reading the Gospel for the upcoming Sunday, the children would do this if they can, and then discussion about that. And then the final part is, how does this apply to our family? And again, parents are leading this. They know their children, they know the other members of the family. They can make this really meaningful and relevant to the whole family. One of the things that we found about the family activity booklet is that it works really well for children in 2nd grade and for their whole families as they're preparing for their first Holy Communion and first reconciliation. Another resource that parishes have found very helpful is our bulletin insert. Again, a particular topic, theme for each one. And as they go through this, it's only front and back, 8.5 by 11, which fits in the bulletin. Then there are questions dealing with, how do I reflect on what I've read? How do I act upon it? Responding to suggestions. How do I pray about it? Again, responding to the content of this prayer section. And finally, I'll just show you a little bit more of how this prayer for Living the Eucharist looks. We read this prayer at the beginning of our webinar today, but this is the side that people would see. And again, this is especially very helpful for shut-ins, for people to memorize. This prayer isn't that long. However, people want to use this as a whole parish to really commune with God. Okay, so we'll go back now to our presentation. A couple more things that we found to be very helpful to us in explaining what parishes, how they can really benefit from living the Eucharist. So one, it does provide opportunities to invite and welcome inactive Catholics. There's really a chapter on this. And the sense is that many people have a longing to do something, especially if they've been involved in the church at one point in their life. And this Lenten time that's coming up might really be an occasion of grace for them. So look at ways that you can reach out and invite people, and especially have parishioners invite people they know with whom they've spoken who might be really interested in a new opportunity of coming closer to Christ and the church. We've also found that when people participate in the small groups, they really want to have a follow-up, at least many of them do. So it's an invitation to those who can provide resources to think about what could be a follow-up to our small groups during Lent. It could be in the summer, it could be in the fall. We've also found that Living the Eucharist does dramatically increase parish participation during Lent. I'll explain this a little bit more, and offers this parish retreat during the Easter season. I'll explain this a little bit more. So this parish retreat, parishes have told us, which does take place during the Easter season, is a great way to sort of reinforce and deepen experiences that people have had in small groups or reading from Exodus to Easter for the teens. But this usually takes place on a Saturday. It's about 5 hours. And in many parishes, if they have a vigil mass on Saturday, it really ends with the retreatants participating in that parish mass. There's a session in the morning with a retreat speaker. It could be live, or it's also on video for you. The times of adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, some quiet times, just sort of a normal retreat, but all helping people to deepen their understanding and their experience of Christ in the Eucharist. The sense of growing in participation in a parish is something that I think all of us who are leaders in parishes want. We want as many people to grow in their relationship with Christ as possible. So we can sort of, shall we say, do the math in the sense that Living the Eucharist does not force a parish to get rid of anything that they normally use during Lent, but rather Living the Eucharist enhances that. So if a parish has, say, simple suppers, Stations of the Cross, by all means keep that, but add to it. Small groups for Lent is going to add new people. Small groups for teens, people who participate in the home is going to add a whole other dimension of people participating. Same thing is true with the daily Lenten devotional, catechetical bulletin inserts. So you can see that this is really a type of immersion for people to get closer to Christ during this Lenten experience. And it's going to increase the number of people who participate in the parish. I want to share one more short video with you. Again, it's a little over 3 minutes, but the viewpoint of a person, parish staff member, and also the parish leadership team coordinator. This is Sister Carol Krzyzewski, again from St. John the Evangelist Parish in Hydes, Maryland. So we'll just pull up Sister Carol for us here today.
I'm Franciscan Sister Carol Krzyzewski, and I am here serving as the Adult Faith Evangelization Pastoral Care Director. I was really looking to have a small group experience for the parishioners during Lent, one that I had already implemented at an inner city parish. Of course, this parish, the demographics are so very different. But I found that at each place, those who participated were so enriched by actually following this Living the Eucharist and the way it correlates with the lectionary and the Lectio Divina. Very, very, very good aspects. Oh, there's absolutely been bonding. And I see it when they come into the church and greet each other and are asking about how are you, and real concern about each other's lives or difficulties. Definitely. We have a strong prayer community here. One of the fruits, I think, also was to have the retreat. You know, the retreat DVDs that we had and the other suggested formats. So I think we had some excellent retreat days, which was another venue for people coming from different groups to meet each other. No, I think it's easy to implement. And once the parishioners get a taste of the materials, you know, what it's like, it's very doable, you know, and I myself was always learning something. I thought, my goodness, through all the studies I've done, I'm still learning. And the content itself was so well composed. I even said to myself one time, I've got to see who wrote this particular edition, you know. The questions that were applicable right at the beginning, the first page of each session, and then the ending questions, all of them were very well put, very well composed. I would highly advise them to adopt the program. It's one that, because it's oriented to small group, it's one that's has a lot of flexibility. We had people meeting in homes. Most of the people who participated were in homes, and not necessarily the facilitator's home, but we had sufficient numbers who volunteered to welcome others into their homes. And the meeting times could vary from morning to evening according to people's schedules and family needs. So that's a real plus. Overall, it's an economical program and has a variety of components. The actual small group booklets, the devotional little prayer book, the bulletin inserts, all of those may appeal to different persons. You know, so it has so many varying components that could be used in any parish. I think the eagerness, you know, that people had to get into it and to meet with their groups, like, why can't this go on every month? It just shouldn't end.
Back again, we want to thank Sister Carol for her sharing about that. I just found it when I interviewed Sister Carol. She's done this now, I think, in two different parishes. She had mentioned one in inner city Baltimore, one in St. Joseph's Parish, St. John the Evangelist, rather. But she experienced this as something that would work well for her and did work well for her. And I think because of that, she has a real satisfaction that she, as a minister within the parish, was really carrying out one of her responsibilities, in the sense that she really helped people to grow in their own faith. Just want to mention something at this point. At the bottom of your screens, you'll see a Q&A icon. And when you click on this, you have an opportunity of making comments or asking questions, whatever. If you could simply do that now, or as we're continuing, there's just a short amount of material left, and then I'd like to spend some time responding to your questions. Or we're wonderfully blessed today to have Emily Jackson with us from Paulist Evangelization Ministries. She also might be responding to your questions or via chat, but simply look for the icon Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So some other things that we found helpful for people to sort of think about as they're considering preparing for Lent 2020. And with Living the Eucharist, you can customize this ministry to your own parish, depending upon your own parish goals, resources that you have. So some parishes would do all of the Living the Eucharist, which was the case with Sister Carol. Other parishes might say we simply want to have small groups, and maybe from Exodus to Easter, whatever you want to do is just fine. It all works nicely with Living the Eucharist. Then you look at who do we want to serve in our parish, especially with Living the Eucharist during Lent. What are the materials that you would need? And away you go. So again, this is really not very complicated, but very easy to implement. I mentioned before that materials are in English and in Spanish. The website is in English and in Spanish completely. So especially if you have English and Spanish speakers, and they want to, say, have a committee in which they do their planning both in English and in Spanish, when you turn, say, to page 6 in the Parish Leadership Team Manual, you're going to turn to page 6 in English and in Spanish. So it makes coordination in both of those languages from a parish leadership team's point of view very easy to use. Sister Carol mentioned that Living the Eucharist is very economical. It certainly is. Let me point out a couple things for you here. So the only cost to the parish is the materials that you would purchase. There's no training fees, no sort of franchise fees. So when we look at a combination of donations as well as, say, materials that would be purchased by the parish, this really isn't going to cost too much to the parish. To give you an example, we can go to livingtheeucharist.org/pricing, which I'll just take us sort of quickly there now. So Living the Eucharist, I'm going to put in /pricing and just pull this up for you. So what about the costs? Are they quite reasonable? Let's look at sort of the base prices here. So one of the small group participant booklets, which we looked at, is like $6. Small group leader guide, say $8 or $7.95. Same thing was true, about $6 each for the teen materials, a little bit more for the teen small group leader guide because there's a video set of 6 videos in one DVD that's included in the back cover. Okay, so these materials are very reasonable. Now let's take a look at how the parish might experience some savings from the investment that they would make. What if a parish wanted to offer, say, adult small groups and from Exodus to Easter, just as an example? So this is based on like 100 individuals who would participate in the small group. This is the parish outlay, say about $600, small group leader guides, parish leadership team manual that would go with us. So the total cost then for serving about 500 people through from Exodus to Easter and about 100 people in small groups would be, say, about $1,600, a little more than that. But if you look at the suggested donation, say like $1 a week for people participating in the small group, suggested donation of $2 for individuals who are using from Exodus to Easter, it comes out to about $50 for the whole parish if everyone would contribute. This is simply an example of the importance of combining donations with parish expenditures. So just wanted to show you what this was like sort of in real time. You can go there yourself, livingtheeucharist.org/pricing. We found that there are a number of resources that will help this parish leadership team to implement Living the Eucharist. Parish Leadership Team Manual, which is part of the parish starter kit, or it can be purchased separately, but it's like a cookbook. So, for example, if you're, just say, cooking spaghetti, meatballs, you would check the cookbook, see how to prepare those. Same thing would be true with the Parish Leadership Team Manual. If you want to figure out how can we promote Living the Eucharist in our parish, check out that chapter. If we want to have a small group coordinator and that person coordinate all the small group activities, go to that chapter. in the Parish Leadership Team Manual. We've already talked about the importance of all the items on Living the Eucharist website, and the Parish Starter Kit contains all the materials that a parish would use for the upcoming Lenten period. It includes the Parish Leadership Team Manual and a DVD with 8 videos. So you're all set through this Parish Starter Kit. Just a couple of things to mention. Well, we'd like to start this, but how do we do it? Very simple. The suggestion is that you would have a parish leadership team. Could be composed of a few people in a smaller parish, a few more people in a larger parish. The parish leadership team coordinator would be chosen under the guidance of the pastor. We recommend that another person of this sort of core team, pastor, parish leadership team coordinator, is a parish staff representative to make sure that the parish staff representative and the parish leadership team coordinator, who would do really all the work under the guidance of the pastor. So this is a nice division of roles. There's a training opportunity for the parish leadership team coordinator and the parish staff person coming up on Wednesday, November the 13th at 3 p.m. in English. It's also in Spanish on Tuesday, November the 12th at 3 p.m. Simply go to livingtheucharist.org/training to register for this. Now, each of you watching this video will get a recording, so you can simply go back to this particular slide. And if you've maybe forgotten what the URL is to register for this training or the dates, simply come back to it. Resources are very important, especially for the implementation of this. So we invite you today to consider participating in Living the Eucharist, but also to purchase the Parish Starter Kit. There's a $10 off offer today for you using the savings code Lent 2020. Simply purchase this Parish Starter Kit by January 15th, 2020. Also, look at the savings code Joy 2020. Use this by January 15th of 2020 to receive a $10 discount on all materials that you would purchase. This does not include shipping and handling. You can also go to the order form, livingtheucharist.org/order form, and look at the details about all the materials and their costs. So at this point, we want to see how we're doing on our Q&A. And I see, at least on my screen, that hopefully we've answered all of your questions, because there are no questions here that I could respond to or that Emily could respond to. So what we'll do then is just continue. There's only one slide left for us. And that is, we certainly want to thank you for being part of this webinar today. It's just a great opportunity and privilege to invite you to understand Living the Eucharist more and hopefully offer this in your own parish in Lent 2020. As we conclude our webinar this afternoon, we'd invite you, when the meeting ends, there'll be a brief survey coming up. It's only a few questions, I think about 8 questions in all. And it's an opportunity for you to give us feedback. We're always looking for ways in which we can serve you better. And also, if you would like us to get in contact with you after this to talk about implementation in your own parish, I would be the person responding to that. There's a place on the survey where you can give your name and address and email and phone number contact, and I'll be contacting you right away. So I think that takes care of all the things that we wanted to cover today in our Living Eucharist webinar. So on behalf of Emily Jackson, who's been with us during the webinar from Paulist Evangelization Ministries, for her wonderful service to us today, and for each of you participating. So God bless you. And again, thanks for being with us. Take care. Goodbye.